Hey, what's up, guys? The truth about spraying on the Kissimmee chain next. Stick around. Yeah, so this is a little different format for me. Been really busy lately, haven't been out on the water as much as I'd like. Nathan and I hit the water this weekend, and I can sum up the fishing in 2 words: it's tough. And we fished in Cypress and in Hatch a little bit on Sunday, and there was current running. Should have been a favorable moon. The water's hot. Um, the water coming out of Toho was brown. Couldn't figure out what that was about. So we went up into Toho, and the south end of Toho's topped out, almost topped out in hydrilla. Should have been clean water. Couldn't figure that out, but I got the answer to that in a minute. So anyway, 5 hours of poking around, 3 fish. I did finally learn a lesson, I think maybe for the last time. And that is that when you have a nasty lightning storm the night before, the fishing is going to be off the next day, at least in the morning. Old man Tom went out Sunday afternoon and caught a boatload from 5 to 7 p.m., but he's not scared of dodging thunderstorms, and I wasn't interested in it. But it just goes to prove to myself again that electrical storms do affect the way these fish bite. Something you want to pay attention to next time you're planning to go out on Saturday morning, and you might want to check the radar and see what's happening on the lake that you're about to go fish, because I keep proving this to myself time and time again. For some reason I can't remember it. Lightning affects fish. Okay, now for the truth about the spray program and why I'm coming to you from this format. Last night, Nathan and I went to Kissimmee, downtown Kissimmee. We braved the Poinciana 5 o'clock rush hour traffic and rainstorms to get the real information about what's going on with the management plan for the Kissimmee Chain of Lakes. Last night, the FWC had a public meeting. There was about 15 of us there that were interested in what was going on. This is where they unveiled, the final management plan for the Kissimmee Chain of Lakes, and that is East Lake Toho, Cypress, Hatch, and Kissimmee. Now, my expectation going into this meeting was not high. I expected it to be like the rest of the meetings where I've been to a few where I felt like they just weren't listening. That was not the case last night. Last night was an open forum meeting. They had a bunch of graphs and charts and photos set up on tables, and 6 or 7 FWC biologists on hand to answer your questions one-on-one, in person. And I was bound and determined to get some answers, and we got some. Here's what I want you guys to take away from this video. There are a bunch of false statements floating around in our local fishing community that could not be further from the truth. Number one about spraying is that the spray contractors get paid by the gallon. Well, that I found out last night is absolutely false. The way these contracts work, the spray contractors get paid by the hour. The FWC buys the correct chemicals, gives it to the contractors to use, so there's no kind of kickbacks on the material itself. And they go out with a plan. The FWC biologists go out ahead of time in their airboats with a map, figure out what species of invasive plant needs to be sprayed, where it needs to be sprayed, and how much it should be sprayed. They give this to the contractors. They go out, they spray it on these contract spray airboats, or some high-tech GPS tracking system that tracks and lays down a trail of both the airboat's movement and when the pumps are on and they're spraying. So this is a lot more regulated than you would think, listening to the common feeling that everybody has out there. That's absolutely wrong. The spray contractors, I believe now, are acting in a responsible manner. And that brings me to the second myth, and that one is they just nuked everything. Well, I don't think so. I know I had specific instances on Lake Hatch last year that I talked about with several of the biologists, and they actually opened my eyes to what happened, why it happened, and how it recovered, even though I did notice it recovered, but I didn't understand why. Every invasive species that they spray for has a specific chemical that they use to control it. Those chemicals typically don't affect other species of plants. So after an hour and a half of speaking one-on-one with 5 or 6 of the biologists, I came away feeling completely different about the FWC and the management program. And I'm going to put a link down to the full program. It's a large read. It'll take you a while, but I think it's worth it. We're going to talk about this again in detail. Like I said, I spent an hour and a half grilling these guys and lady, and I got answers that I could not refute. I mean, spraying is necessary. I understood that always. I didn't always feel like it was being managed to its best ability, but now I feel differently about that. The FWC is tasked with a incredibly complex problem to solve without giving the resources or the control necessary to manage and to solve these problems. For example, FWC does not control water elevations anywhere on the chain. They can make requests, they can make recommendations, but ultimately the water levels are controlled by the Water Management District, which I have a bone to pick with them. That's a topic for a later video. The other thing they can't control, besides the water levels, is the weather. Now, everybody knows Lake Kissimmee has been in a decline over the last 5 years, basically since Hurricane Irma. What happened with Irma is the submergent vegetation, the eelgrass, the Illinois pondweed or peppergrass, the hydrilla, basically gets rolled up when you have a lot of high winds on a big lake that's a long lake like Kissimmee and Toho. And Irma did a job on Kissimmee and the offshore vegetation. We also have another problem in Kissimmee, and that is we have an invasive snail that's destroying the Kissimmee grass. Also a topic for another video. So without control of hurricanes, obviously, and without control of the water level, and without control of the rainfall amounts, which all affect how you manage vegetation in a given lake, these FWC biologists, in my opinion, are doing the best job they can with the limited control and the resources that they have. I spoke with 5 of them last night. I have their contact information. I've already got an email from one of them this morning inviting me along for a pre-survey and then watching some of the mechanical harvesting that's going to go on in Toho in October, and then going along for the post-survey and just see how effective it was, and understanding what they're trying to do and how they're trying to do it. I also spoke to the biologist in charge of Lake Hatchinall. I'm going to get to go out with her and her boat and look at things from their perspective. Now I understand more about what they're trying to do, and I understand more about how they're limited and actually getting it accomplished. I want to help, and I think you guys should too. Understanding your resource is as important as picking the right lure in the right location. The more we understand about the hydrology of the Kissimmee chain and about how the emergent vegetation and the submergent vegetation plays a part in bass habitat, the better fishermen I think we're going to be. I spent the last 30 minutes in a very loud conversation with one of the biologists about artificial structure and how it plays a part, or really doesn't play that much of a part, in the overall bass population. We talked about creel limits and getting those modified a little bit. We talked about the best management plan for establishing long-term, submergent vegetation, so that these fish, particularly on Kissimmee, have somewhere offshore to go other than up in the 3-foot deep Kissimmee grass when the water's 95 plus degrees. Anyway, long story short, my attitude was not negative towards the FWC when I went in the meeting last night. It is nothing but glowing positive after I came out. I couldn't find any problem from a reasonable standpoint with anything they've done on the Kissimmee chain. The problem is they're not very good at communicating, which that's what we're going to do with this channel. Get this information out in a format that you guys can see it and understand it. And what I would like for you guys to do is talk to your friends, talk to your buddies in your bass clubs, explain to them the 2 points especially that I talked about. One, the rumor about how the spray contractors is completely false. They never nuke everything. Everything is targeted with a plan and a long-range goal in mind. And they never dump any chemicals out just because they're getting paid by the gallon. So let's get rid of that narrative out of the conversation and start looking at the problem from a reasonable standpoint, understanding that these people are our partners in the long-term health of our resource. And if you want to be able to continue to catch big numbers of fish and big fish and have your children and grandchildren do it, we have to get involved. So you guys let me know what you think about this content. I'll be back next week with my regular long form content where you can watch Nathan and I struggle to catch a few little fish, but I felt this was important. I wanted to get it out right away. That's why I'm doing it from my truck, because as soon as I get home, I'm going to edit and get it to you guys. This is important. Let's get involved in the management of our resource. There's going to be more videos like this explaining what's going on with the final plan, the action they're taking. I'll get into more detail with the long-term plan and about how it affects us and our ability to catch, big bags and lots of fish. So let me know what you think of this in the comments. If this is the first video you've seen on this channel, watch this video next. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.